Week 17 of the NFL just ended yesterday, so we now have the draft order for the 2021 NFL Draft. And today I'm going to be doing the top 10 picks and what I think, who's going to go with what, where players are going to fall, what kind of players teams are going to be targeting, and obviously which players are going to be going at which position. So first up, Jacksonville Jaguars, worst team in the league this year. I think this is a pretty obvious selection. Trevor Lawrence is the guy that you want. Obviously, beginning of the season, everyone's saying tank for Trevor, and the Jaguars ended up winning that tank. Trevor Lawrence is, he has it all. He's athletic, he can pass the ball accurately, he's got a big arm, he can throw the ball really far, and he's just a very talented player. So I think without a doubt, if you're the Jaguars, you have to go Trevor Lawrence here at pick 1. At pick 2, this is where it gets a little interesting because the Jets have a quarterback in Sam Darnold. Now, is he a good quarterback? Certainly debatable. I think the most likely selection here is a quarterback, and if there's a quarterback to go, I would go with either Zach Wilson or Justin Fields. Justin Fields, I think, is a little bit of a better player. But that being said, I could certainly see Zach Wilson going. I think the combine has a lot to do with draft stock, especially in a quarterback, and you kind of see where players move up and down the board. You saw this with guys like Justin Herbert last year, moving up a lot. So I'm going to go with Justin Fields for number 2 for the Jets. I think that'll be a interesting pick for them, a move in a different direction for the organization. Maybe he's not a guaranteed franchise player, I think, like Trevor Lawrence is, but he's a very good quarterback, and he could definitely make the Jets into a better team. And if they are not committed to Sam Darnold, I think this is definitely the direction they should go. And I think that they are not committed to Sam Darnold, considering the year that they had this year. So Justin Fields I have going number 2. So number 3 is interesting because this pick is actually from the Houston Texans in the Laramie Tunsil trade that happened this year. So it's difficult because for the Dolphins, they're a team that overperformed this year. I believe they went 10-6, and that was way better than most people had expected. I mean, I honestly expected them to go 7-9, 6-10. So for them to go 10-6 is very impressive. Obviously, they have Tua Tagovailoa, so quarterback here is not going to be a pick that they go with, even though there are some very good quarterbacks on the board, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. So the question is, what do they go with? And I think if I were the Dolphins, the best pick here is you want to boost that offense. Give Tua some weapons. And the biggest weapon here, I would say, is either Jamarr Chase, Jalen Waddle, or down here, Devonta Smith. And I think right now the best receiver seems to be in this class, Jamarr Chase. So if I were to guess now what receiver they take, I would say Jamarr Chase. But again, last year, a lot of people were saying best receiver in the class, Jerry Jeudy. A lot of people were saying CeeDee Lamb. But Henry Ruggs obviously ended up going first. But the best receiver ended up being Justin Jefferson. So I think it's difficult to say who the best receiver is going to be, but I think if I had to guess which receiver they take, I would go with Jamarr Chase out of LSU. So coming up in pick 4. Pick 4 is interesting. Again, the Falcons. Are they committed to Matt Ryan? I think they are a team that severely underperformed this year. I mean, they always seem like they have so much talent on their roster, and yet every year they just don't perform well. I think the last time they really did well was, that year they went to the Super Bowl. Even after that, they just did not do well. And maybe the front office is thinking, time to move on from Matt Ryan. I would not be surprised if that were the case. Because while Matt Ryan is certainly a great player, the Falcons may be looking to move in a different direction. I think the same thing kind of happened with the Chargers last year, where Philip Rivers, obviously a great quarterback, but they just realized that they kind of need to rebuild the team and start from scratch and get a player that was young and they could build their entire team around. And if they're to do that, the option would either be Trey Lance or Zach Wilson. Trey Lance is a bit more of a wild card pick. I could certainly see it happening, but I think the more secure pick here would be to go with Zach Wilson out of BYU. So now you come up at pick 5, and if you're the Bengals here, this is such an easy pick to make because Penei Sewell arguably is the best player in this class for his position, definitely, but just overall, because obviously Trevor Lawrence being a quarterback is a much more valuable player, but I think Penei Sewell, you can make the case that he is a better player, a more secure pick in a sense, that he is a guaranteed good player. He is just an absolute monster on the offensive line. I think he just didn't give up a single sack this year or something. So Penei Sewell out of Oregon, I think if you're the Bengals and you're at number 5, Penei Sewell's there, that is a no-brainer. You gotta give support to Joe Burrow. Let him know that you are going to back him no matter what. Let him know that this is his team. Let him know that you are going to give him protection. So Penei Sewell, number 5, easy pick. At number 6, this is, again, another team with many difficult situations because they, again, severely underperformed this year. The Eagles, I did not expect the Eagles to have the number 6 overall pick this year. They had Jalen Hurts, great quarterback. He's performing really well this year. But that being said, their offense just was not doing that well this year as a team. Maybe they move on from their coach. Maybe they just rebuild the team altogether, center around Jalen Hurts. It's difficult to say. I think Jalen Hurts is kind of a Dak Prescott scenario. People didn't necessarily expect him to be that great of a player, but he ended up being a fairly solid player, and he could arguably be a guy who is that franchise quarterback. So I think if they are committed to Jalen Hurts, then you go with a receiver here. Jalen Waddle or Devonta Smith, one of the Alabama guys. And I think right now, Jalen Waddle seems to be ranked a little higher, but Devonta Smith could certainly move up. Both excellent players. Alabama receivers have a history of being extremely good. You always have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley. I'm sure I could think of a lot more. But Alabama receivers, that's pretty much a sure bet. Jalen Waddle, number 6. If the Eagles are committed to Jalen Hurts, then I think Jalen Waddle is the pick. So number 7. Number 7 is difficult. Again, all these picks are difficult here because a lot of these teams are in a position where they have to decide whether or not, because this is a very good quarterback class, so a lot of these teams have to decide whether or not quarterback is a position they want to target in the draft. And again, the Lions, Matthew Stafford. But that being said, is Matthew Stafford the quarterback of their future? I believe he has a team option this year, which means they can either decide to bring him back or they could decide to release him. And I think that is pretty much going to decide at that point what position they go with. If they release him, obviously I think Trey Lance, if the other 3 quarterbacks were off the board. But if they don't, I think Micah Parsons, a great guy. He's an excellent linebacker. And that being said, I think Micah Parsons is just too good of a talent here to pass up on. Even if the Lions don't necessarily need that inside linebacker, I think Micah Parsons is just too good of a player here. And there's no such world in which you would pass up on a guy like him. So if he's there at number 7, I think the Lions would definitely want to take Micah Parsons. And number 8, again, another team that is definitely going to be wanting to target a quarterback. So that being said, there's really only one quarterback who I see going in the first round remaining on the board, and that is Trey Lance. So if he is the only quarterback there at number 8, then the Panthers would certainly take him. If one of the other quarterbacks were there, I think they would still take a quarterback. But which quarterback is more difficult. But I think Trey Lance, in my mock draft, I think Trey Lance is the only quarterback here that I would see going. So that being said, Trey Lance I see going number 8 to the Panthers. Number 9, the Denver Broncos are again a team that I could see taking a quarterback. But if none of the other quarterbacks are available, obviously there's some other guys who could certainly be taken at quarterback. But that being said, The Broncos, I think, should definitely target a corner here. And there are definitely some good corners on the board. Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain, and I think I'm leaning more toward Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. Obviously, his dad was an amazing player, and I think he has the same potential. He has the potential to be an amazing corner in the NFL. So at number 9, I'm going to go with Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. I think some people might say, oh, the Broncos should draft a quarterback. Drew Lock isn't the guy that they need. And I would probably agree. But that being said, if Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, and Trevor Lawrence are all off the board, I'm not sure if they have a choice. I think they really pretty much have to go with best available or best position available, essentially, at that point. Just have to hope, I guess, that a quarterback falls to them. Or maybe they reach for a quarterback or trade down. It's difficult to say a lot of times because quarterbacks are so hit or miss in the NFL. Sometimes you get guys in the lower rounds who are just end up being amazing players, and guys you draft 1 or 2 and they end up being busts. So I could certainly see them taking a quarterback at number 9, but at the same time, if I was in their position where none of the top 4 core guys were on the board, I would take Patrick Surtain. Number 10, the Cowboys. Cowboys are another team that didn't do very well this year, mostly due to the fact that Dak Prescott was injured. I think if you're the Cowboys here, you gotta fix up the offensive line. I think the Cowboys have had such a history of being a great O-line, but this year I think it just did not work. Ezekiel Elliott just had a terrible year, and if you want to commit to protecting Dak Prescott, if you want to commit to giving Zeke that great O-line, because ultimately that's what the Cowboys team is about. It's about that heavy run game and having those big guys up front and being able to just get good blocks. And I think without that, the team's going to struggle. So if they take a player here, it's either going to be Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State or Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. And I think tackle might be more of a need for the Cowboys rather than guard. But that being said, I think a lot of the guys they have are very versatile guys who can move around. But I think here that Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State is the pick. I mean, he's just such an excellent player. He would certainly be a hole that the Cowboys would be able to use him to fill. And I think overall, none of the other guys on the board really make too much sense for them. Obviously, they don't need a receiver. They drafted CeeDee Lamb last year. They don't really need corner. That was a guy that they drafted second round last year. I forgot his name. So I think the best choice for them is just offensive line, and it's down to either whether they want tackle or inside. And I just see Wyatt Davis going a lot higher just because I think he's just a more talented player. But obviously, I think, again, offensive line is a position that fluctuates a lot too, especially with the combine, especially with teams see how good these guys really are and how much potential they have. But I see Wyatt Davis here going at number 10. Well, that is my mock draft for 2021, picks 1 through 10. If you guys disagree, comment down below. Otherwise, thank you for watching, and that's that.